Oh my goodness, Dr. Kimberly. It says we're live.
And we are. Can you believe it?
You know something? I really can't at the moment. So
This is now February of 2023, and we haven't done a show consistently
cheers.
uh,
Oh,
um, since,
cheers.
since October, and we did one right before Christmas, but I didn't talk.
That's right.
Yeah, I didn't talk.
Oh, Dr. Kimberly, how are you?
Well, I'm still coming up on the rough side of the mountain, but um, I just decided I'm not going to let this get the best of me. And I'm just going to show up, do what it is I do.
Awesome.
hmm
Awesome.
So, how have you been? Many of you know, I think right before we had our last live show, he had a long ponytail. And look at there. It's already coming back.
I mean, that was way back in October. So that's 4 months ago. And the good news is, as the tagline of the fundraiser was the ramp that Dave's hair built, because it was a Rotary of Grand Rapids fundraiser. We raised about $6,000 that'll pay for materials so that people will have, an accessible life and get in and out of their houses. And so um, it's it's the main reason why my dad, who might be an 83-year-old Polish gentleman, the main reason he doesn't give me grief about my long hair is because it's being grown for a good cause. It goes,
I love it.
for some reason, people love to give
You know,
money.
I'm still waiting in line to get a piece of the ponytail. I just want to be able to do like what? Like, oh my god, what? What?
Oh,
Really? Oh my god. You don't have accessibility. Like what? Oh my god.
I know, and there's a few people that are in my father's camp about my ponytail, and one of them I saw yesterday, and he's like, "Oh, you know," he was happy. Mayor Kepley of Kentwood's another one. Anyways, but it's not about my hair. It's about the ramps and the accessibility and helping folks. It's all for a good cause. Um, yeah, you
and,
know,
and, and I love it. Well, me, I have lots of clothes and accessories. And so, whatever you have, in your hand to give, then that's what I think that you should do. So I was
absolutely.
really excited that everybody knows that I get my clothes custom made, and I, usually have accessories and that go along with it. So I was excited that 100 Shades of Diversibility adopted a family for Christmas, and I, yes, I sold one of my custom made items, and I guess the part that really excited me is that it sold within, I want to say, 2 hours of me posting it. And so I was able to get it shipped. I mean, it came with the outfit and shoes to match. So,
Well, I mean, that's one thing. If the viewers don't know yet, Dr. Kimberly, that there's one way of doing things, and that's the right way when it comes to accessorizing and connecting. And that's for you, not necessarily me. I just, it'd be a baseball hat and blue jeans if that's was my life.
well, hey, you know what? If it has rhinestones on it, hey, I'm all in. But
Rhinestones and a Bentley. I hate
I'm
the beep
just
of the
saying,
Bentley.
honk your two-tone horn that I had vowed to myself. Now, me personally, I remember back in the day where, Calvin Klein jeans and Gloria Vanderbilt were like a big deal. And I had a pair, maybe two or three. And so when I joined the Navy at 17, and that was our uniform of the day was dungarees. You had a dungaree shirt, dungaree pants. I said, oh my gosh, after, like 9, 10 years of that, guess what? I will never don another pair. Dungaree of what? Jeans? No. I'm dressing up
Really?
every day with earrings and just all the wonderful things. And so from that day to this one, from 1994 until now is 2023, you will always see me dressed up.
All right.
There's
Well,
always,
so you're
always.
saying, but even if you go to the rodeo,
Well, they got glitter on the boots. Yeah. And,
yeah,
and 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 probably a big nice rhinestone on a cowgirl hat.
that's yeah. You are, you know,
I actually, once everybody knew that my last name was Kennedy, and Mr. Kennedy, he made me a widow. And so, but before then, we had a Western wedding. So I had the Western boots with lace all up the front and a nice Western cowgirl hat that had the cute little,
mhm.
fringes and oh yeah.
Wow. Was that inspired by your time living in Colorado, or what made
Oh,
you up
just a
Western?
tad bit. And plus, he wore cowboy boots all the time.
All right.
And this was when the Grand Rapids, the Grand Rapids Art Museum was on the other corner over by Kendall,
Okay.
and that's where we had our reception. So we rented out the whole Grand, and it was wonderful. And all of our guests got an opportunity to, um, peruse on our on us. So
Nice.
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 Here we go. Hold on.
Oh, Dr. Kimberly's got a cough there, folks, because one reason we've been on a hiatus is, you know, life is life. And now we're back at it, but still get a little water and we're off mute.
Yes, actually, someone sent me these ginger and honey packets, and then I just heat up some. You put the crystals, and you just heat. You put them in the your cup of choice, and then you heat up some water. I do lemon tea and pour it on top. So it's some lemon and tea and honey and ginger.
Nice.
And another wonderful, wonderful person brought me some organic honey from Kids Food Basket. So, shameless plug there. They have, oh my goodness, the most wonderful organic honey
Hmm.
that you can go out and purchase. And so instead of using sugar, I use honey as a sweetener.
Nice.
And it's actually pretty nice.
Excellent. I like ginger too. It's supposed to be good for you.
It is. It's pretty strong. Pretty strong. But
You got the strong ginger.
it's,
Oh, goodness.
oh my goodness. I'm like, what? Yeah. So, yeah.
So, yeah,
Well, it is Black History Month. Can you believe it?
it is. We can talk silliness in a moment about not silliness, it's silliness related to the people who don't like things like Black History Month and Hispanic Heritage Month and things like that. So, you know, because I'm just going to say, unfortunately, there's people out there these days. Some of them might be governors of other states that are like against diversity, equity, and inclusion work. Like somehow, again, inclusion is an intentional act. Just and most times exclusion is intentional. I mean, it's so normal we exclude people just out of habit, you know?
Mhm.
Um, because I actually, and I can't share it, I could hold up my phone to show you the picture, but I remember being at an event once with a person who might be on the air right now with me, and the lieutenant governor was there, and they had like a special pre-meeting with the lieutenant governor in a second floor space. Well, guess what? That second floor space has an elevator now.
And guess what? The elevator doesn't work.
What? All right,
so
that's a different episode here. I was gonna.
so I went there for an event,
Oh, oh.
and they had all of these wonderful things that were upstairs. And I said, "Oh, okay." And they're like, "They have an elevator." They said, "Yep, it doesn't work." I think it's only probably worked once or twice. They did it to placate another community because they were
Oh,
making such a big deal. So at least we can say that we have it. It doesn't necessarily have to work, but we can always say that we have it. And I said, I don't think that you know who I am. And they're like, "Well, you're Dr. Kimberly?" And I said, "No, I don't think you know who I am and what it is I do." And I said, I'm the wrong person. I said, to say that to. And then someone comes up and says, "Yeah, she's this big, advocate guru, and she's
friend
friends
of
with some."
governor and others, but we digress.
And of course, everybody likes to name drop. And all I had to do was sit there in this Bentley. I didn't even have to toot my own horn. Everybody else around did. And they're like, "Yeah, I think that she's the wrong person to have said that to in this particular space." And they were like, "Oh my gosh, I think we messed up." And I said, "I think you did too." And I said, "But that's okay." I said, "I know how to be a lady. And I said, "We can
Right.
fight behind closed doors."
Well, and the fight, because like I was to get back to your question about Black History Month. Um, the yeah, too many people that we still have to fight to get that and to recognize that it is part of our history. And I've already had a highlight this Black History Month, second only to us being back rolling on the road.
Mm-hmm.
But last week, my wife and I had the opportunity to travel. And as I entered an airplane, I got to meet Dr. Cornell West.
Oh my gosh, are you serious?
I am serious. And if I was, I see, people don't understand how shy I am. I just hide it really well. I mean,
I do.
I, I
Oh.
should have taken, that picture with him, because, I introduced him to my wife. It's like, "Oh, it's my wife." And and he was, I mean, I don't know what to say. He was honored. I'm like, again, I was just like, "Thank you so much for your work. Keep up the work for justice." And he just put his hand on his heart. Because again, as a white guy, I have no understanding of what it's like to be a Black guy in America. And unfortunately, we had, another police killing a few weeks ago in Memphis, showing some more videos and, some cool stuff that um, I say cool, but hard hitting commentators on the Instagram, just talking about how much stuff just doesn't go reported. And there was like a guy the week before that was pulled over by this same police unit, and they're like, "Where's that pound of drugs?" And this guy's like, "Well, I just got a pizza," and they're like, we're just joking." But it was like, are they just fishing for stuff? It's just, people. But I'm
Well,
just going to get back to being honored to meet another doctor, Dr. Cornell West, and Googleize him, look him up, folks. It's just so powerful. And America's got a long way to go. Long way to go.
I think that we do. Um, I think we can talk more about it now that we are after the aftermath, if you will. And I realized I think it was last year, and I honestly, how do I want to put this? They say there's no stupid question, but I think that there is. I think the obvious question is stupid. Why are you asking that? I believe that we don't always ask the right questions. And I think people do that intentionally because they don't want to hear the answer. So
Amen to that.
they
Amen.
want to skirt around. And so they don't ask the right question. And to me, that's dumb. that if you don't ask that right question. And usually I get what I call these ignorant comments, remarks that, did you really just say that? Did you really stop and think about it? And one of them was concerning diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the person was like, I just don't understand all of this. Why can't people just be happy with the status quo? Why you just, you stay in your neck of the woods, I stay in my neck of the woods, and, everything will be fine. And I said, well, there has to be some level where you think we can meet. And they were like, well, I don't know. And this was like early on with my campaigning. And I'm here in the 79th district, which is, 66,000 folks, and 64,000 of them are Anglo. And so I said, well, you can't expect to win what you don't represent. Is that representative? And I just stopped and said, well, kind of, it is. I may be Democrat on paper, but I live a very Republican life. On many levels. If we have to look and say, okay, what's the lifestyle of a Democrat and what's the lifestyle of a Republican? Well, I guess that I'm right in the smack dab center of Republican country, and so I guess I'm living a Republican life. And I thought, how can I identify with these 66,000 folks? I mean, where do we find some kind of common ground? I'm in Allegan County, I'm in Berry County, and I'm in the outskirt parts of Kent County that flow into Allegan and to um, Berry County. And the first thing that I thought about was, they're going to look at me and this girl's disabled and she's in this wheelchair. So I Googled how many words begin with the prefix dis. There's 1,683 words that begin with the prefix dis, and some of them have to do with situations, people, places, things. Sometimes the dis can be an adjective to describe something. And I said, that's it. When I started going through the list and looked at all of these words, I said, wow, I bet you all 66,000 of these folks have felt disrespected at some time. I bet you some of them have been disillusioned. I bet you, they have felt dismayed, or they've been disappointed. And I said, that's it. That's how we're gonna do this. And I think that since this was brand new territory, you have to decide what is considered a win. And when you're blazing, a new trail, that's a win all day long. Only about 44,000 folks voted. However, 15,360 folks were like, wow, I identify with you somewhere on that dis level. The other, 30,000 folks, they were just like, I would, but I'm too, scared to do something different because these are all my friends. And, they all have Trump information in there because they had already had Trump signs made of him being, running in 2024. They've already got them done. Hanging in the garage, already have yard signs. I mean, they're just so excited and prepared. And I said, I think that's it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that voters, I'll just leave it there, other than to say, if people were to go back to that Google and go to woodtv.com, I think it is, and check out the interview between you and your opponent that Rick Albin did, and when you said you can't what you got to represent. How did you say it again? How do you represent or
He asked me, um, did I think that I could represent this, you know, community well, and did I think that I could work across the aisle? And you know, you're a Democrat and you're a Republican country. How do you think that you can do that? And I said, well, you know, I said, I'm not looking at it as red or blue. And I said, because if you think about it, I said, red mixed with a little bit of blue, I said, makes this beautiful hue of purple. And so
mm,
I said, that's what I see. And I said, and you know, it's my favorite color. So that's what I'm going to focus on how we can, you know, mix this together. And I said, I've had the opportunity to work with, you know, Republicans to get things done. I mean, we work with Bola Fave and Trust. Bola Fave makes it very clear he does not like the governor, doesn't care for the Democratic Party. However, you know, I'm a Democrat, and him and I worked very well in order to get those House bills 4075 and 4076. You know, they originally started out, I want to say 45, 16, and 17. And somewhere in there, they ended up being 4075 and 4076. And the governor actually signed them into law July 26th of 2022. And he definitely had no problems with saying, hey, Dr. Kimberly, we need you. And we knocked on doors, got it out there, you know, to be on the floor. Started at what, 9, 10 o'clock that morning, and,
mm-hmm.
and worked all day. And by what, 4:30, quarter to 5, we had enough signatures for them to take it on the floor, and it passed unanimously. And I mean, just to see that picture of us on the House floor with the, yes, we
Yep.
did it.
Yeah,
We did it.
you know, and that was the piece, you know, that I'm just going to call it your exuberance about doing the right stuff. And people are attracted and drawn to that as opposed to the folks who I today words are escaping me, but it's the folks who lack that exuberance and are all just like, no, we're not going to change. And it's like, really? What? Why not? What are you holding against? You know, and what are you afraid of? You know, back to what are people afraid of in Black History Month? You know, it's like, why don't you want this taught? Why, you know, we're teaching all this stuff about these wacky Greek guys of 2,500 years ago, you know, but then back to a Frederick Douglass and others who, before the Civil War, were working for the abolition of slavery. And then, you know, I don't know if you've seen the documentary 13, where the 13th Amendment said, well, we don't have slavery anymore, but you can still have people who are in prison, you know? And so we went around, decided as a nation that, oh, let's just incarcerate, you know, the majority of Black folks. You know, well, they can't be slaves, but they can be prisoners. And so, you know, just again, the data is the data. Why are there huge differences in the percentages of incarcerated Black folks as opposed to white folks? You know, again, you've heard the bumper stickers because they're true. Why is powder cocaine a lesser crime than crack cocaine? You know, and it's just, folks, we continue to reap what we sow. Do we sow exuberance and let's work together on positive change, or do we sow you're lesser than me? You know, again, it's, I love the folks. I could just go on about the there was a white senator. I'm just going to call him out for. I have a weird YouTube feed. You know, the algorithm doesn't know what to do with me because I watch different stories of different opinions. So I
Mhm.
got a floor speech from this white senator who was talking about Davy Crockett, and Davy Crockett, like, he voted in Congress for money to help this person rebuild their burned down home. But then one of his constituents said, "Why are you doing that? Let charity take care of that. If people want to be charitable, let them be charitable, but government shouldn't help folks like that." Well, and so he's holding up Davy Crockett. But then Davy Crockett, when he left Congress, he went to Texas and he fought the Mexicans, i.e., helped the white folks steal Texas from Mexico. It's like, which one is it, Davy Crockett? I can't help my neighbor, but because we got to let people be exuberant and free, or not exuberant, just be free and do what they want. But you went in there and stole their land. Ay, ay, ay. I don't know.
I think that we do know. It's about power, it's about control, and he who has the most toys, wins. But what is it that you are truly winning?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
are you winning?
Well,
And
and that,
so
yeah, we had the example. I don't know if you've seen this stuff in December, back in my former job as a county commissioner, we had anti-Black history with the diatribe had a $2 million allocation taken away because a handful of white Republicans were afraid of primaries if they supported this, because in their being the diatribe's focus on free speech, they allowed somebody to say defund the police, and they let people say Black Lives Matter. Now, if free speech is free speech, why can't people say these things? And then to be held against them, to take this $2 million away from them, and to give $500,000 to a white-owned building, not even half mile to the north. It's just, and yeah, so check out the diatribe. We need to have those guys and gals on here.
I think so. And I believe it goes back to the day that you were alluding to, where the meeting could have been just, I was told to be in all of the meetings, whether the meetings were upstairs, downstairs, in a broom closet. I got a phone call and this was the directive, and I showed up. And hey, I said, why can't you just bring the meeting downstairs? Well, that's a good thought. But that's not what we had planned on doing.
Right.
And then my thing is, but you have the power, because of who you are, to change it and make it to be whatever it needs to be to accommodate the most people, to get what it is that you need done. And it was like, oh, duh, didn't think about it like that. But this was like, after the fact, because, everybody was kind of in their feelings, things were a little heated, and, folks were on the phone, verifying. It's like, yep, this is what was said. So why didn't it get done? Well, okay, well, we'll just talk afterwards and we can do pictures together. Take pictures of what?
Well, and it's funny that the thought that comes to mind is when you said that, when people said to you, well, that's not what we had in mind. They had in mind, this is my conjecture, I could be wrong. They had in mind an exclusionary event. They wanted an event in a smaller space to make those that were invited for this pre-event feel a little more special than everybody who was invited for the full event. So they wanted to have an exclusionary event, and then they realized that somebody they invited, they've excluded because of the space being up a flight of steps. And so even that almost is like, well, what were you afraid of? Like other people were going to be part of this frank dialogue? Well, back to that day, I kind of remember somebody starting the questions with some frank questions, like calling people out. That might have been you. So it's like, what are we afraid of when we're trying to exclude people? And again, the exclusion, its intention wasn't to exclude people with disabilities, it was to exclude the non-chosen. But then because of the place they chose.
So it was said to me that the people who were chosen to be there are because they are problem solvers. We can go across the whole state of Michigan and we can hear the complaints, but we want people who are ready to solve the problem, not rehearse it, but say, hey, I can give you 5 ways to implement something new, and I'm going to assist you with this. I'm going to use my affluence and influence to help you to further this. That was the whole purpose of the call and the purpose of being invited. So now we're not just talking about, as a person of color, being at these tables where decisions are being made for us, but now, okay, strike one, you're a person of color. Number two, you're a female. Number three, you're disabled. What? So for me, these last 10 years that I've been in the chair, to me, that's making history. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't talk about what happened, in the 1400s, 1500s, 1600s, 1700s. But I think that we need to start looking at those who are definite difference makers and are creating, a new history. We don't like some of the things that happened before, but we want to. And I guess for me, how many times can we rehearse slavery? Why can't we start today and say, guess what? There's a, you already mentioned it. We got a new way of being enslaved. Why don't we start working on that? Let's make sure that when, young men and women who are wrongly incarcerated, maybe we didn't give reparations, back then, but we do have a fund now that if you're wrongly incarcerated, then we have your 2 acres and a mule waiting on you, and we're going to help you get started in a new life. You know what I mean? So we're still enslaved. We're just enslaved differently, but we have so many great people, like Dr. Cornel West, who is creating, if you will, some new history for us. So I'm probably going to get smacked, by the Black people, but that day, it really taught me a lot, because here it was, a person of color tell another person of color, you can't be included. So I'm saying that we can't keep blaming white people. I mean, this last incident in Tennessee, it wasn't 5 white officers, it was 5 Black officers that did this to this young man. So we need to stop and start looking and saying, wait a minute. We giving white folks too much credit for stuff that they may not necessarily be doing, but I think we're kind of doing to ourselves. And if we tell the real truth about history, it wasn't that white men just made the decision that they're just going to come and steal all these folks from Africa and bring them into the United States. If you watch the movie, the latest one with, it's called Woman King, it talks about the history of what really happened. Is that it was Black folks were selling off folks, because when she had the argument with him, like, why are you doing this, when she found out that one of the persons that was going to get sold was going to be her daughter, and she says, what are you doing? And he goes, well, we need money to take care of our country, and if we got to sacrifice, a few folks here in order to get some money from them, well, that's what we're going to do, and then the rest of us are going to live real.
Right.
That's the piece of history that no one wants to talk about. If we want to talk about the real history, it wasn't that white folks came over and pillaged our villages and stole folks, from Africa, from our motherland. We did it ourselves. I'm not saying that you guys didn't come in, there may be some areas, and yep, you may have done that to the Indians, you may have pushed out the Mexicans, but when it comes to Black folks, we assisted.
Well, again, definitely assisted, and at the same time, that was the white folks doing the buying. I mean, they're probably, yeah.
I mean, if we're gonna tell it, we gotta tell the whole truth, and not just a truth that keeps us divided.
Mm-hmm.
To say, okay,
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
talk, I'm always talking about the relationship that you and I have, and I say, if you're looking for a way to make it work, he and I have definitely made this work. And look how many years, it has been. And it started from, the VA making making this recommendation as, okay, you're in a wheelchair. We're going to put you in independent living now, and this is what independent living looks like. We're going to send you to Disability Advocates of Kent County, and they're going to teach you how to live your new, you know, disabled life. I said, who just does that? They have something for that. They don't have, like what? They don't have no school for, being black in America. Like, really? So you're just gonna teach me how to be handicapped? And I thought it was interesting. And after kicking and screaming, it was like, okay. And once I got in there, it was like, oh wow. It opened up, you know, my eyes to so many things in a whole different world. And what you did for me, I mean, we started with, how do you do this? You start with conversations. So we started with that dis, what is this? What does this look like to you? What does it look like for you? And it was people of all colors, of all types of disabilities. And so do I think that, what do I want to say? I've learned the most about resiliency, having a voice, being the best person that I can be, empowering myself, and really using my dis to be a friend to me and not an enemy through the model that Disability Advocates of Kent County. Now, a lot of people will say, well, they don't have a lot of Black people on the staff, or,
We don't.
they, but when you're asked, do you want to come and work? Oh, I don't do all that. Don't you gotta have,
But the reality is we're working on it. The the hope. I mean, our number one goal, as you know, is to hire folks with disabilities. And how, the last few folks we've hired have been interns with us in the sense that um, they were folks with college degrees that no one else would hire, and so we created, as I call them, internships without a college, and they developed their skills more. And when opportunities came, they were able to accept those positions. Um, However, the one piece that in us trying to really write a better history for us as an organization, as I joke, and as I joked at the event 2 weeks ago that I'm going to talk about, we moved out here to the edge of the known universe. You know it, Dr. Kimberly. You live just down the street. This back when we were youngsters, 68th Street, was a 2-lane road. Now it's a 5-lane superhighway. There's tons of development out here, houses being built. The M6 expressway over in Gaines Township. Again, I remember back in the 70s and 80s, there was a sign that said future, like for sale, future highway interchange, meaning buy it and you're going to make all kinds of money. That's where that Meyer store, Target, all of that stuff sprung up overnight. Um, However, we're still way out here. And so just over a year ago, we started these things called Black and Brown Community Partner Lunches. And how do we, with intention, continue to listen to? That's what you've said a few times today already. How are we listening? And how are we asking the right questions? Like, tell us your story. And then we listen, And um, unfortunately, because our invitation went out a little late, the good and the bad of that is the bad is we missed some folks, but the good is we had more time for people to share. And so, but this is not an exclusive event. So once the next one gets scheduled. We'll get the word out there. We had a great conversation. Um, Again, just about what's really happening in the community and meeting other advocates. We met this effort with young women in Grand Rapids Public Schools doing social media. How are we growing the next? I won't even say next generation because these kids are doing it already. Though the next wave of social media folk. I listened to a podcast with this woman, African American woman who started a company called Brevity, I think it's called, and she's taken on the world doing awesome things as a woman of color, bringing more people of color together and creating that market. It's like, how are Black folks helping each other and we helping as well? Because for too long we chose not to help. In fact, we did the opposite. We intentionally pushed people down. I mean, again, that the histories of the Tulsa race riots. I mean, riot is too soft of a word when people went and just destroyed Black communities that were doing well and prosperous. Yeah, that's some, again, history we have to talk about because for some reason, I think for good reasons, we're all fired up about Russia invading Ukraine. But early on, people pointed out that, well, what happens when these folks are being invaded? Well, they're other people literally said out loud, well, the Ukrainians look like us. And they weren't saying us meaning you, they were saying us meaning me. They look like white folks because they are white folks. But that's a whole nother episode to talk about Team White. 100 years ago, I was not part of Team White as a Polish American. But now we are because they need more members. So anyways, it's, you're muted, Dr. Kimberly.
There we go. I think that we need to avail ourselves to more opportunities. I been housebound since between there and the hospital since right after the election. But the one thing that I did do, and I said no matter how I felt, I was gonna go, that our former Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency director, Zanetta Adams, was in a play, and it was called Anne and Emmett. And wow, that's all I can say. I got my tissue here because it was the emotions that just ran rampant. And I was one of one, two, three, four. It was sold out, and I was one of four persons of color there. The only person with a visible disability. So I was in my wheelchair. And when I called ahead to purchase a ticket, I said, I'm in a wheelchair. Do you have wheelchair seating with a companion? What does that look like? They said, we can't do your tickets over the phone. You have to do them in person, which I don't see the difference that it made because it didn't change what happened when I got there, And other than the fact, I think that they were really kind, is that when I got the tickets in person, that they had a person that came into the Grenfell Theater with me and said, now, this is the walkthrough. This is what the stage looks like. And I think it's called a 360. So we were in a U shape and they were right in the center of us. And they just kind of walked around in just in that little area. So they were kind of doing a 360. So they weren't just standing there talking to an audience, but there were times where, they would either stand next to us if you were close in the front. And so I appreciated the fact that they came in, they had it all taped off where the actors were going to be. And then there was space where, so I guess to back up a little bit, Anne and Emmett is about Anne Frank and Emmett Till, if the two of them were ever to meet and had a conversation. And then their parents were with them. So it was Emmett's mother and Anne's father. So it was four people, and you got to hear Anne's point of view, you got to hear Emmett's, then you heard from Emmett's mother, and then you heard from Anne's father. Because how adults experience situations and how children do are just different, you know. And so they all got to tell what their perspective was. And so Zanetta Adams played Emmett Till's mother.
Mm. Wow.
Blown away. But what I thought was so interesting is that me and the person that we went together, we were escorted inside the theater. Now, the directors and those who worked at the theater all said, now this is how they're going to come in and out of here. And Emmett's mom is going to sit here, and dad's going to sit here. And so I think that the best place for you to be is going to be right here. So they found this space right in the front for me and for my person that I came with, right? We're sitting there 5 minutes before it gets ready to start. Some random lady comes from the other side of the theater and says to me, um, I think that you may not need to sit right here being in that wheelchair because you're going to be in the way of the actors. And she walked off. Everybody was just like flabbergasted because she wasn't in the room when they took the time to figure out where I was going to sit.
Right.
So she missed that part. So somebody over there, when she gets over there, of course, you know, there were some other friends that attended, and they're like, "Hey, what are you doing, lady? You know, is that any of your business?" And on top of that, don't you think that the people who are running this knew that, you know, where they wanted her to be? What made you feel like you needed to say something? And I'm just like, yes, you know, two things. Number one, it was a white person that came to defense of me, the black person, me, the black person with a visible disability. And I was like, yes, you know, that was that a good situation? No. But the fact that others witnessed it and were in agreement, oh, that was just totally egregious. So what just happened? Like, really? Oh my God, what? You know, and people said something to her. Now, the point of the whole story is it's if you see something, say something. And that's the part that we're missing is that people don't have the personal bravery and courage to say, hey, I think that what you did was wow. Mm, all the isms, racism, ableism, classism, because, you know, it's all these white folks and here's this lowly little black girl. She probably doesn't know any better. You know, I mean, we can spin it however we want to, but the reality is that something happened. Somebody stood up. Someone saw the injustice and didn't allow history, if you will, to keep them from making a difference.
Mm-hmm.
That's the piece that I like. You know, what's the takeaway? Did I like what happened? No. But was it necessary? Absolutely. Because somebody is looking for the opportunity to step up, be different, and be a change agent. And I think that if we all do that within our own sphere of influence and affluence, that's what's going to make the difference. You know, hey, Billy, Billy. I know that you don't like them over there, but you know what? I got a neighbor and they just seem to be just great. They keep their dog in the yard. They pick up the crap when the dog crap. They don't let the dog crap in my yard, you know? They don't have garbage all over the place. They don't got 15 people living in a 3-bedroom house. Nope, they're not doing that. You know, and they're paying their rent and they're keeping their lawn, you know, mowed. And I think we need to give them opportunity. Yep, I think we need to do that. You know, and it's just that simple.
Mm-hmm.
because everybody has something that they don't like about a particular race, or the prejudice is they believe it to be true about them. Well, maybe somewhere at one point it probably was, but today it's not.
Right.
It's not.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because I even look at your board. I mean, you have a very diverse board, and I have been to Disability Advocates of Kent County. I've rode down there in my wheelchair. I've gotten a ride down there. I've even come down that way on the bus. There is a bus stop that comes right in front, and I mean, so there's just no excuse for folks not to come. You can start out by volunteering. There's a plethora of things that you can do until you figure out, does this work? Do I want to do this? Oh, okay, sure. Looks good, kind of feels good. These people are really great. Plus, they have really good snacks. I'm just saying, you know, they got a nice little kitchen. Got a few folks on staff that make some really great food. Not mention no names, but I'm just saying that it's a really great place to work. And if you're looking, for a job, you can definitely do that. And you don't have to be afraid. I mean, this is not like that little girl that had to be the first, black little girl to go into an all white school.
Right. And yeah, come make history with us.
That's all I can say. I think that hey, I've already parted the Red Sea down there. I got some earth hanging outside the door. Got a little bit of might see my name around the place. So I think that and we got some great folks that are there.
All right. All right.
So we're looking for a great year. What do you think about that?
I I'm fired up for the rest of this month. Then we'll worry about the rest of this year. So as we continue to break open Black History Month, how about you know um, folks, a few spoiler alerts. How the Black Panthers were an instrumental part in disability history in
Mhm.
America, in addition to folks of color who were part of the folks with disabilities. But we'll tell that story in future episodes. Again, folks who are excluded know how to include each other, because where you were talking, Dr. Kimberly, we've all experienced the dis. Figure out, and we've all experienced the dis. Some less than others, but where some can hide from it better than others. And when people feel their dis, they get that resonance. So look forward to those stories this month, folks, and we'll continue, because it's all about inclusion and being together, because we are
Absolutely.
way better together.
Absolutely. We say thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you
We're live
on.
again, folks. Be warned.
Oh, we're back. And many of you got to see the show last week when Women Step Up. I'm excited. Tomorrow, we will have the former director of the Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency, Zanetta Adams, will be on tomorrow. And we will talk about the 1 million veterans. She was featured in this month's newsletter. So I was really excited. You get your little email from the VA and they said, this is what we're doing, for folks with, PTSD and suicide prevention. We've been doing this long. I think it's been 10 years
Awesome.
since they started, and they're at 900,000. They're trying to get to 1 million, and to make a difference in the lives of veterans, to really improve the quality of their life. And so, who is their featured person for February was Zanetta Adams. So I'm so excited. She'll be on tomorrow.
Awesome stuff. And yeah, keep rocking it, Dr. Kimberly. It's awesome that you're better. You're not where you want to ramp up to, but We're back live, folks. I'm going to keep saying that.
That's it. And we'll see you on next week.